welcome to another episode of Uncommon Voices, Uncommon Visions. I'm your host, Dr. Valerie Nyberg. I would like to first start by saying Happy New Year. I hope that my listeners had a great holiday season and a wonderful start to the new year. This is a very personal episode for me because I feel like for those folks who have subscribed and who have been following me, I need to explain some things. It's been a while since I've posted a podcast episode, not because I didn't have one ready to go, but I did find myself at an interesting crossroads. Many people who know me well know that in the last couple of years, I've really shifted my focus towards trauma informed restorative practices. And part of that is recognizing how much trauma I experienced as a child, how much trauma I experienced as an adult, and how I've responded to those experiences and how those my responses have both helped and hindered my own ability to grow and change and develop. Um, just recently, a childhood friend, probably the person who's known me the longest in my life, reached out to me, expressing some concerns. She had Googled me on the internet, and she said she got multiple negative hits about me, and she urged me to scrub my past. Um, it's really hard to face negative press, particularly when you strongly feel that you didn't do anything wrong, that you were actually doing your job. Um, I told her I thanked her for her advice, but I am still grappling with what happened. So part of this episode is about this little break that I just took. And part of it is actually getting my voice heard. If you look me up on the internet, you will find that I was removed from my position in my first high school principal position after 15 months. I think it's really interesting to see what the media covers and what the media doesn't cover. If you look more widely, you will also find that Dr. James Whitfield, a principal in Texas, was removed from his position uh, based on white parents really feeling like he was pushing critical race theory. Since I think this was January, February, somewhere in there. Uh, Another woman, Cecily Lewis, was pushed out of a position that she hadn't even started the position. She had accepted it, moved her family, and was about to start when they put the brakes on it. And then she ended up working with the school district to kind of find another position in another district, and the same parents kind of followed her there and did the same kind of stuff, I will say. But my story has been local to Iowa, local to me. Basically, I took a position at a high school right after COVID started. I actually interviewed before and took and accepted the position the month before COVID um, shut everything down, and understood that there were a lot of complications with the position. There was a push in the district or in the community to become more culturally competent, more more inclusive of students and staff of different races, different cultures, different uh, sexual orientation. At the same time that it was a community that was very attached to their traditions and their history. So I knew that coming in. I knew the superintendent was in her second year there, who had hired me, and we spoke frankly about the situation and kind of what that would look like. Um, that first year, even though we had COVID, we had several different, we started the year with several different learning plans the situation was evolving, and COVID didn't make anything easier. And throughout that first year, I was told many times by many different people, you know, you're the right person for this job. We're so glad you're here. You're holding folks accountable to what they need to be doing, but yet, you know, you're approachable. I can talk to you. You're visible. You are making sure that you're all around the building. Your admin team is all around the building. Where, you know, this is a lot of difference, and was much appreciative. Not everyone, mind you, not everyone, but those were the feedback I got from the folks above me, even some of the teachers below me, and across the district widely. Coming into the 21-22 school year, I fell in love. I had the opportunity to pursue a relationship that I have always wanted to pursue. So I was open about wanting to pursue that relationship, which was out of state, but very committed to finishing the job I had started. Wasn't sure exactly how I was going to make an exit, but wanted to at least let my immediate supervisor know what was kind of going on in my background. That was in August. By October, I was removed. My superintendent was pushed out the May before all of this changed. So that was also a part of this situation. Was my main support, my superintendent, was no longer there, and in its place, a person who hadn't been there the last couple of years, who didn't know the history, who wasn't familiar with the specific work we were doing, the specific conversations we had, was put in. And there's nothing, you know, there was nothing wrong with her. She was put into an unenviable situation as well. The information I was given was under the notion of an investigation about my leadership. I was never interviewed. No one I know was ever interviewed. And within 3 weeks, they had replaced me with a white male retired, he had been retired, principal. As a professional learning opportunity, what I've learned is keep your cards close. But I also learned that in order to do the work that we have to do at the secondary level, particularly around inclusivity, cultural competence, understanding where students are going, you can't do that work alone. I was really about trying to build coalitions, build our community, work together. But we are in a cultural moment where partisanship and division and rancor is more valued than cooperation and compromise and really wanting to hear the other side. So in many cases, I was part victim of the times and circumstances. So I think one of the things that's been most difficult about that situation or that experience is knowing that the things that I advocated for, creating an alternative school so that students have choices, that we didn't make everyone, we didn't treat our students like sausages and put them through the same ringer and expect them to come out exactly the same or to be able to make it through that gauntlet. You know, creating another environment for them to have a smaller, more supported environment for their education, their high school education. You know, security. I was always talking about how we needed more bodies to really provide safety for our students. And more importantly to me was getting students the emotional and social supports that they needed by providing additional liaisons to do that work, not just administrators, but we needed more counselors. We needed in-house therapy. We needed folks that students could go to when they were in crisis, or even not in, well, like they didn't have to be in crisis in order to ask for help. And then creating systems for all of that. That was the work that I was doing. And that's the work that my understanding from what I've heard is the work that they're doing, but I won't get the accolades or the acknowledgement for that work that I initiated, um, because I got scapegoated out of that situation, not because I did something wrong, but because it was easier to scapegoat me than to really change the the underlying culture, the underlying power dynamics that people had become accustomed to, and to really hold the system accountable. And one of the things that really brought that message home to me was watching the Harry and Meghan Netflix docu series. They talk about having to um, battle with the institution, as in the monarchy, as this thing that, even though it said it's even though the monarchy is has talked about modernizing, has talked about, has does understand that they need to, quote unquote, be relevant, is still slow to change and is still problematic in their approach to the outliers, the folks who don't fit the mold. Diana being one, and Meghan being another. And I understood, as I watched that series, I understood the kind of decisions that Harry and Meghan had to make in order to keep themselves okay, in order to keep their kids okay, in order to um, remain emotionally and psychologically healthy. Um, because I felt, I feel like a lot of my experience in that in my experience in the last year and a half have been very much that same fight of, no, you can't just put me out in front and say, we expect this, and this of you. And when folks come for me, go, oh, well, just deal with it because that's just how things are. That's what leadership is about. And not understand the harm that is caused in that situation. And I will likely never ever meet Meghan and Harry, but I get their story. I get what they've gone through, and how they are trying to reclaim their voice, which I guess is in some small part what I'm doing now, is trying to reclaim my own voice, because I was silenced through that. I wasn't allowed to speak back. I wasn't allowed to face whomever. I wasn't permitted to do much of anything besides, yes, I'll go. And even to the fact that I was pushed to resign, even though it was very clear they weren't going to renew my contract, not because of anything. There was no reason, but I was urged to resign, which legally, has made it impossible for me to take any legal recourse, which is unfortunate. But I take from this situation again that I have a clear purpose in education. I have a voice. I have an understanding of the complexity of what it means to be a person of color, and female, who is trying to do things that other people don't quite understand, aren't quite ready for, really want but don't know how to handle. And I believe in the I believe in the work that I'm doing because I see that despite the fact that I'm not there, they're still doing some of that work. That that means something to me. Um, there will never be a statue in my honor or anything named after me, or there will probably never be any kind of public recognition of that. But I know that I mattered. I know that I made a difference, and I know that I will continue to do so, even on those days when it's hard to feel confident in that, to understand that there is an emotional cost, there is a psychological harm, and it does take time to come to terms with that, to face it, and to deal with that. And it's not a linear process. There's no roadmap for it, but it can happen, and it does happen. So it just I want to take this opportunity to share my experience, to share my story, to share um, what it is that I'm going through. As a person who has really pushed to survive, to endure, to push through situations, I'm finding myself, or I found myself in November really just needing to take a break, to give myself time. I was, and um, really questioning what I'm doing with myself, with my time, with my effort, with my energies, and really doubting what I know is my purpose, what I know is my direction and my path, because I've always been on a path that a few other people take. Since I've returned to California, I have gotten into the VA healthcare system, which many will understand that the last 10 or 15 years of VA, a lot of the mental health services have been under spotlight for lack of consistency in care. So I've gotten a lot of great responses from the VA here regarding mental health supports and the like. And I was in a meeting with a provider early in November who expressed to me, having looked at my military history and kind of like how I filled in the gaps of where I left off in the military, and kind of how my life had unfolded. I remember her saying, I can imagine that you feel overwhelmed and alone, and that you need to emotionally process. And it wasn't like, this was my second meeting with her, and it wasn't the first time she had mentioned overwhelmed. And I kept thinking, how do you know when you're overwhelmed? Like, what does that feel like if that's your current, like your state all the time? If you're always trying to survive, if you're always living in survival mode, if you're always trying to figure out how to best navigate situations so that you can get through them in one piece. It gave me a moment for pause. So what I found was in November, after I did that first episode, I just couldn't make myself do the second one, even though I had prepped for it. I had done everything that I typically do. I just couldn't do it. um, and that caused a lot of guilt and anxiety and lack of confidence, because here I am, like, this is the thing that I'm doing right now, and I can't even get that done. I do have a very small, but I appreciate the loyalty I've had from subscribers and people who have listened to my podcast and really encouraged me to keep going. So you don't want to lose out on those folks who have invested their time and who continue to listen to your episodes. But I needed to take a moment. I needed to, as the mental health care provider said I needed to give myself the emotional space to process, which is not something I'm really great at. I think that's part of the reason why I'm so attracted to trauma informed work, because I think when you have so much coming at you, not only from a societal level, but from a household and from the systems that you have to engage with in order to get your needs met, your education, your social services, law enforcement, all of those systems, it does take a toll on you. And I don't think we talk enough about that as a society, as a culture, and recognize that not everyone has the same experience, and not everyone is afforded the same emotional space to really understand their situation and to really process the information, the situation, the emotions, the reality, all the pieces that come with being human and trying to make your way throughout a life. So I am really in my own life trying to move towards healing and understanding. I'm a perfectionist. Most people who know me know that I'm a perfectionist, which I've developed that as a mechanism for coping, because if I'm perfect, then I'm lovable, I'm acceptable, I'm all of these things that I want to be, but I'm not necessarily allowing myself to be okay with being human. And as an educator, I fundamentally understand that this is our work. Yes, of course, reading, writing, arithmetic, all of the content is important, and the content is important mostly because it helps our our students to understand how to learn, how to think, how to really navigate knowledge and information, and what they believe and how they believe it and what's that based on, and those kinds of things, which I feel like in the last decade have been um, really under fire. I mean, intellectualism has been under fire for a while now. And but with that also comes understanding who you are, what you want, what your foibles are, what causes you stress, what triggers your anger, what what really impedes your progress towards getting to what you really want for yourself. And that is why that's the work that I want to be doing. And that is the direction I am going. And um, I I might do this like quote unquote disappear act every now and then to kind of give myself that time. I'll try to be more thoughtful about that process, because I think it wasn't just dealing with the past year of experience. It was also the upcoming holidays and being away from my children, and really coping with all of that, and coming to terms with a relationship that didn't work out the way I thought it would. And all of those things all came to bear because this is the time of year where I become reflective about those things, and I give myself the time to kind of reminisce or reflect, or however you want to phrase that. And it literally just stopped me. I paused. I'm fortunate enough to have the ability to pause. And I hope as a listener, this message will be helpful to you in some way. Because I really think that the more that we can be open and honest about where we are, and how we do get through, the better off we all are. Nobody has the playbook that is guaranteed to make your life the way you want it to be. We're all just figuring it out, and we need that collective um, community to help navigate. No one can do it alone. I know that for sure. And this is just my way of saying, you know, I really, I'm sorry for not putting together my episode. I will do better moving forward, but there are reasons and circumstances that were um, healthy for me to take that moment of pause. And I believe that with the new year, I will get back on that horse and I will do even better moving forward. So, um, I want to thank you again for listening, for supporting my platform, and for believing in this work. I genuinely feel that the divisions that we have, the fears and anxieties that people are feeling right now, the threat that some people are feel like they're under of losing their lifestyle, their way of life, their traditions, their whatever it is that they value, is just a matter of us being able to reflect on where we are and understand what what our emotional triggers are so that we can begin to understand those in a larger context and to really humanize ourselves and humanize the folks that we interact with, and that that is what it means to be human. So, again, thank you so much for your patronage and for your support. This has been Valerie Nyberg with another episode of Uncommon Voices, Uncommon Visions. Please feel free to like, comment, or share this episode, and I will see you next time. Take care.